welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and back fresh from vacation, Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
It's been a long time.
I know. I'm a little nervous. I feel a little awkward.
Awkward?
It's like the first day back at school, like you get kind of nervous.
Oh,
yeah, like
totally.
You know the routine and you know like everything that's going to happen, but still it's like, we haven't done this in a while.
That's right. All the other podcasts got new clothes, new shoes.
I know. What's new about us?
Yeah, what is new about us? I don't even know. We've got lots of follow-up and a great show today. We're talking about adjusting to schedule change and making big transitions. Very timely conversation going into the final throes of summer. Before we get started, head over to TakeControlADHD.com. Get to know us a little bit better. You can, of course, listen to the show right there on the website. You can subscribe to the mailing list, which we strongly encourage you to do right there on the homepage, and get an email each time a new episode drops. Of course, connect with us on Twitter and Facebook at TakeControlADHD, and call us. Our voicemail is 503-664-4ADD. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this show. And if you haven't checked it out, you've got to go check out Nikki's online training course, Organizing Your Space Your Way. It's been a great summer for the course. We'd love to have you check it out and see what you think. What do you think, Nikki? How's it going?
It's going great. Yes. I highly recommend that course.
It comes highly recommended.
Highly recommended from the creator. But no, yeah, it's been going great. And I love talking about it and teaching it. And so, yes, come on board this organizing journey with me. Excellent.
You can find out more about that, of course, at TakeControlADHD.com. Okay. Updates on summer vacation. Took some time off. I think I just wanted to open with a question for you, Nikki. What did we learn about our systems and managing time and taking a month off of the podcast? Did we learn anything new?
I learned nothing new. I hope that you have something good here, because I saw that in your notes and I'm like, oh man, I didn't learn anything. I went on vacation and I played with my kids, and no, it was a great time off. And it actually went exactly the way I expected. I knew that the time was going to go by fast, and it certainly did. So I really tried at the very beginning not to set the expectation that I was going to get a whole lot done around my house, because part of my vacation was at home and then part of it was away. And it really honestly went exactly the way that I thought it would. We went to San Francisco. We were in the car a lot because we drove down to San Francisco. We were driving up to Eastern Washington at one point. So a lot of driving. And just on a side note, I used to live in San Francisco. And so I got to show my kids like where I lived and where I worked. And I just think that they were really, surprised that I lived there, because San Francisco is so different from where we live now. I mean, It's like night and day.
Well, I imagine San Francisco is so different from San Francisco when you lived there.
Well, and what's funny about that is that, yes, the Union Square area, like the downtown area, definitely looked different. Like I couldn't even find the building that I worked in. I think I know where it is, but they changed it all.
Yeah,
so that part, it definitely looked different. But there were still like some parts that were exactly the same. So I lived kind of in the Marina district, over by Fisherman's Wharf, and the same coffee shop is there, the same little grocery store on the corner that I used to go, or like market, not grocery store, market was there, and a little restaurant that I used to go to was still there. The grocery store that I used to actually go to was a Safeway, and it's like underground, and it was still there. The place I used to work out was still there. So, I mean, it was just kind of fun to see the things that didn't change.
Except for now, that place where you used to live is full of about 1,000 times more tourists. And
well, we had a lot of tourists back then too. Believe me, I mean, it's always been But you know what the biggest change is cost of living.
Yeah.
I don't think I could afford to live there now. I mean, I looked up what studio apartments are now, because that's what I lived in, was a studio apartment. And I mean, I don't know how people do it. I love the city. I love it, but I don't know how you do it. I do not know how people live in such an expensive area.
Well, that was the thing. I lived down in Mountain View, for a while. And it was the same thing for us. I mean, even then, when I lived in an apartment down there, the reason we moved up here is because what I was paying in San Francisco for our little tiny apartment, 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, bought me a 4-bedroom house.
Yes.
Here in Portland.
Right.
And now I can't, I mean, with Apple and Google and Facebook and all of these giant companies, you can't, I mean, the South Bay is just a disaster for cost of living. It has really changed. The entire economic and sort of demographic environment down there has just been blown up.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
But it was definitely fun. I loved seeing some of that stuff and loved showing it to my kids. Yeah. So, for me, there wasn't a whole lot of learning experiences. What about you?
It's been a little bit of a struggle. I know I've shared some of the foot pain that I've been dealing with, and it's hard to deal with kind of pain, but it got really bad. And so I went to the doctor, the foot doc, and he tells me that what I thought I was doing to heal my foot was actually making it worse. So for 9 months, I've been suffering, and it just this last month has been as close as I can probably describe to what I imagine chronic pain to be like. I stand up in the morning and it's a red hot poker that goes up my heel into my calf and shin, and it just is there all day. And so I spend a lot of time standing on my left foot and kind of trying to tape my foot and ankle and ice it 10 minutes out of every hour all day long. It is a real pain in the rear. And
pain in the foot.
Yeah, right. It's a pain in the ankle.
Sorry, and I don't mean to laugh at your expense because it sounds awful.
It is. It's really horrible. And so the disruption that comes from that and the way my brain reacts to pain is it goes in and out of being super productive when I take some Motrin and sit down and I can really power through and catch up stuff, to being totally debilitated where I just get so depressed that I
do
can't.
nothing.
Yeah, I'm broken. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling just totally broken, and I've never experienced that before. So this is a new thing that I'm kind of learning right now, is how pain impacts the way my brain works with ADHD. And so I don't feel like I've learned anything yet, but I'm figuring it out, and it's
I hope
it's a
you
challenge.
Feel better soon.
Well,
That's
thank you.
An awful thing.
Well, it's dumb, and I'm ready to be finished with it. I'm seriously ready to be finished with it. But it was really humiliating when I went to the doctor, and he said, so what you thought this is not that thing. And in fact, the way you are taking care of yourself is exactly the opposite of what you should be doing. And so
not good news.
Yeah, not good news. So anyhow, that's my summer update. I'm working through it, and I hope to maybe we can talk have a conversation in the future about chronic pain and ADHD. It'd be good to hear some thoughts from others who have dealt with it, because it's hard to suffer. So
it is.
There you go.
Yes.
We do have some follow-up. We got a phone message.
Yes.
Interesting question.
It is. It's a great question. And are you want to play it?
Sure. Let's play it.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm from Austin, Texas. I am 24 years old, and I work in public relations. When trying to find the perfect career for someone who is ADHD, I couldn't really do anything that made me sit still. And for me, my creativity came out in communications and design and using my imagination a lot. And so getting into a career where I got to speak to people and come up with new plans and, come up with strategy for communicating with different companies and to the public, used my ADHD strength. But growing up, though, I started on ADHD medication a little later in life, and my parents and I were just discussing how it might have been easier had I started a lot sooner. I wanted to get your opinion on how soon should you have your child tested for ADHD, how early on in their life, and how soon can you start ADHD medication, and would that help in the long run, or would it help to see how they cope with it on their own? But thank you so much, and I hope to hear my question on a podcast.
Okay, so I just want to, but I know the crux of her question is around ADHD and medication, and it is a great question, but I just want to celebrate the fact that she has used her ADHD as a superhero power and found a career that really leverages that going into public relations. I think that is something to cheer about, and it's a real lesson. So
and to pass on. It's a great inspiration for others who are especially trying to figure out what they should do next for work or career.
Absolutely.
So,
we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on that, but just props to her for doing that.
Have to acknowledge it for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about drugs.
Okay, well, let's talk about drugs. So basically her question really is, how soon, she wanted to know our opinion, how soon should your child be tested for ADHD and how soon should they start the medication? And, I have an opinion. I have some thoughts on it, I guess, but I'm really interested in your thoughts too, Pete, because you have dealt with this. You've worked, this is hands-on, your experience. So, I'll share with you what I kind of think, and then we can see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
My first reaction or first instinct is to say, ADHD runs in the family. So it can, not always, but it can. So if you or your spouse has ADHD, there might be a good chance that one or more of your children might have it as well, especially if you're seeing challenges. If you're seeing symptoms or things that you're noticing areas where they're struggling and you think it could be kind of an ADHD related thing. I definitely think it's worth looking into, right? I think anytime your child is struggling, it's a great thing to get some outside help and try to figure out what it is. It may not even be ADHD. It may be something completely different.
Well, right. And luckily to that exact point, you can't just go say, give me drugs for my kid's ADHD. Like you have to go through, there is a process,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they definitely have to be diagnosed and know that that's what it is. And oftentimes I'll tell my clients, don't assume that that's what it is. You've got to get that formal diagnosis and rule out anything else that could be, potentially going on. So I definitely think you just want to be aware of what's happening with your child and where they're struggling. Also, I suggest building, a strong relationship with their teachers, because oftentimes the teacher in preschool or first grade or elementary school is the one that's maybe noticing some things before you do. And, I think if you already have concerns or, your teacher brings up concerns that they have, to have that open communication with them and kind of really see how is the child, doing in a school environment. I don't really know. The question about, is there a right or wrong age of when to get a child tested? I don't know if you can even say that if there's a right or wrong age. And the same thing with, should you medicate a child? I think it is such a personal decision. I said I had an opinion, but I really don't. I really think that you have to look at the pros and cons. You have to talk to your doctor. You have to talk to, the other parent. You have to talk to the child, depending on how old they are. There's just so many factors that can go into it that it's just I have a really hard time just saying, yes, you should go medicate your child. But I also have a hard time saying that, no, you should never medicate your child. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's it's just such a personal thing.
Yeah. Well,
but I'm really curious to know what you think, Pete.
We just having gone through exactly this sort of discernment, I will agree with you. I don't know what the complications might be medically to medicate your like a toddler. But so I don't want to comment on that. But I will say that ADHD is not like a disease. It's not something that you take medication to cure. Right. Medication is an accommodation so that you can relate to the world around you in a way that reduces the noise and allows you to function. And when you're talking about kids, it's a little hard to figure out, even at the, if you're struggling with like an early diagnosis. You see great kind of, hyperactivity or impulsivity or inattention in a 4 or 5 year old. Well, you know what? 4 and 5 year olds are inattentive and hyperactive and impulsive.
Yes.
So and the other side of that is, what is it you want out of your 5-year-old, right? What is it that you would want to give them medication so that they can accomplish besides living a strong and healthy life? If if the medication is an accommodation to be able to work in a more focused manner or study in a more focused manner, thinking about it for little kids it feels like you're addressing kind of the wrong issue.
And real quick, I just want to say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is one point I think is really important. We don't want to be looking for it, right? I mean, you don't want to be thinking, oh, because he, had a temper tantrum now, oh my gosh, does he have ADHD? I mean, we don't want to be looking for it or assuming that that's what it is, because like you said, it could just be the stage that they're in as children, or it could be anything. It could just be the circumstances at that moment.
Right.
So yeah, I just want to say that on the sideline is that, you don't necessarily want to be putting yourself in a position where you're trying to search for something wrong. That just doesn't seem healthy to me.
Yeah. Because it can be easy to mistake a really energetic kid with a kid with ADHD. I mean, there are so many risks. And that's why, back to your point, to have a very strong relationship with daycare providers, a strong relationship with teachers, a strong relationship with all caregivers, and of course, with doctors, if you're really, concerned about it. I mean, there are traits, the kids who are extremely energetic and don't have a trend toward ADHD, those kids will slow down and take naps, and often ADHD kids won't. They're not nappers, and so there are little signals. But again, I'm with you. I would not be out there hunting for it, mostly because there is no benefit in the reading that I've done to giving kids medication at a very early age. If they're not looking to accomplish something, to function, if they don't have a classroom to really focus in, like, there's no benefit. These drugs go into your system and they go out, very, very quickly, and then they're gone. And so, it's not like you have to get kids accustomed to medication anymore. There's, those are kind of old, it's kind of old behavior. So I really think if you look at it as something that will help your child to live and relate in the world when they need it, that's probably a pretty good rule of thumb. And that's what we ended up doing. And we had a long conversation with my daughter, even though she was young. And we talked to her teachers and doctors and all the caregivers, and all came to the same decision that when she needs it at this point, then she should take it. And she has gotten to the point where she knows when she's going to need it. She knows that, and she hasn't taken it all summer and hasn't, and has been okay, but she knows when she's going to need to sit down in high school now, that she'll probably need a little support. And so that's, she's had it available to her for many years, and it's been a fairly reasonable and well-reasoned approach, I think, to dealing with medication for our child. So.
Terrific. Well,
those are my thoughts.
There you go. If anybody else has anything they want to chime in, please do.
We do have one quick recommendation, and it's an old one because it came in just as we went on vacation, from friend of the show, Jordan Gamble. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to this visual timer. I swear at some point we've talked about time timers, but this looks like this looks like a really good one, and there are some great benefits, of course, to these visual timers. And Jordan writes in with a link to a good one and some good options for it. So thank you, Jordan, for writing in with the time timer, and we will post that in the show notes.
Yes. And I just want to say, if anybody else has other recommendations of products or tools or systems or strategies that work for you, please share that with us. Call us, email us, whatever, so we can share that with the rest of the community. I just think it's so important that we do pass along that information. Absolutely.
All right. So let's talk about adjusting to a schedule change.
Yes. So this is good timing, because I was actually inspired to talk about this topic because of a client that I was working with recently. He works full time, and he is actually planning to go to school in the evening in the fall to get his master's degree. And he was debating on whether or not should I take one class? Should I take two classes? And just trying to figure out what that right balance is between work, school, and personal life. And so it got me to thinking that he's probably not the only one who is trying to, really make that decision of adding something to your schedule, like adding an actual, either whether it's school or maybe some volunteer work, or, do you know what I mean? Like you're adding something
to what's you're not accustomed to, right, in your daily rigmarole.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be kind of difficult to know. Well, actually, I think what people tend to do is they just jump on board and just say, yes, I'm going to add that.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to do that. That sounds great. And then they get in the middle of it and they're like, oh man, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to do today is I'm just going to hit on some points, some best practices on how to make this decision. If it really is a good idea to add something into your schedule and how to kind of make it a smooth one if you do decide to do it.
All right. So let's talk about it.
All right. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is something that we have talked about recently, and that's the whole time blocking idea, right?
I do love this one.
Yes. So it's actually an exercise that you can do with yourself. If you are trying to decide whether or not you want to add something into your schedule, take a snapshot of your time the way that it looks right now. So I think the easiest thing to do is to print off a blank weekly calendar. You can just do that off of any calendar that you have, right? Just print off a blank sheet that has the week. Have it be big enough so you can write on it. This isn't something to do on your phone. Okay. I want you to actually like print it out and write on it and feel it. Does that make sense?
Oh,
because there's just something about that.
Yeah.
Once you have the calendar printed, the first thing I want you to do is actually block the reserved time that is non-negotiable. And what I mean by that is your work schedule, for example. So Monday through Friday, you work 8 to 5. That is time that is non-negotiable. You can't change that. There's no flexibility. Same thing with school. If you already know you are taking 1 or 2 classes, put that in there if you know what those times are. If you are, maybe you have church that you do every Sunday and, that's a non-negotiable for you. That is something that you are committed to and you do. Put those things onto your calendar first. Feel free to color code them if that helps you. And then I want you to take a step back and look at your week, look at what is reserved and what's left. And at this point, you can fill in those appointments that are a little bit more flexible. So maybe that's your workout schedule or something else that you do that can kind of vary, right? Mm-hmm. So here you have a snapshot of your week. So this is it. Now, unfortunately, for most of us, our time is taken.
Yeah,
right?
Right.
Because we work a lot. We have all of these other things to do. So it is kind of humbling when you see, oh man, I really don't have a whole lot of time. So the point of the exercise is to really see where do you have some openings and you can really make that decision of is now the right time for me to get my master's? Is now the right time for me to add on to this volunteer work? Can I do it? Does it make sense? And then I think that what we've talked about in the past when it comes to time blocking is we have to remember our boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. Before we commit to anything into your new schedule, especially for those things that are just more than one appointment. So we're talking about ongoing classes and things like that. Just make sure you have the time and that if you say yes, that it fits into your priorities. Is it important? So like with this particular client, for example, what I did is where are your priorities? His priority is his wife, his work, and his school. So what's left? Where's the wife going to be fit? Or how's that going to fit in? And does it make sense to just take one class or 2 classes?
How do I fit my wife into my schedule?
Well, I know. And it's funny you say that because in the conversation, we're like, I know it kind of sucks that you have to plan a date,
yeah.
But when you are working with a schedule, seriously, where your time is so not yours because you do have these non-negotiable things because you're trying to go to school and work at the same time, you have to plan for it.
Yes.
I mean, there's just no way around it. Otherwise, the wife is going to get forgotten. And that's just sad.
Don't forget your wife.
Don't forget your wife. So, I think it's just knowing your boundaries and making a decision on whether or not this really is the right thing and is it the right timing and all of that. Now, with that being said, say that you do decide that, yes, I'm going to take 2 classes. I'm going to work. Now we have to really consider what are the extra responsibilities that come with adding whatever it is that you've added to your schedule. And what I mean by responsibilities, of course, is like any extra tasks that need to be done, money that needs to be spent because maybe you need to have supplies or something like that. Anything that's going to take your time that's outside of the actual meeting or scheduled class, right?
Well, yeah, and school is such a great example because, taking the extra class is not just the time you spend driving to and sitting in the class.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
you have to think about all of the time you will spend writing papers and studying and reading and researching. Yeah.
And doing group meetings and all of that. Yes. Yes, of course. So that all has to be taken into account. And write this stuff down, look at it, plan for it, look at go back to that snapshot. Where is it going to fit? And really this type of planning, if you've already committed to the new class or to whatever it is that you're adding to your schedule, at this point, you're planning for it. And this will decrease your stress, in a big way, right? Because now you kind of know what you're in, or you kind of know what to expect, and you're not going to be blindsided, which is what we're trying to basically prevent.
But can I just jump in with just an example? Because I teach this, one of the classes that I teach is a marketing management class at the graduate level. It's in an MBA program. And just to give you an idea for that person who is looking at starting a graduate program, the kind of time baggage that comes with agreeing to join in to a new program for one class. My students tell me that they spend just for my class 10 to 15 hours a week on classwork outside of class for one class. So you're saying now, I'm thinking about starting a graduate program. I don't know if I can take 1 or 2 classes at a time. Can you afford the extra 10 to 15, possibly 20 to 30 hours a week of writing, studying, reading, researching the works? It is a big commitment. It is a giant trailer of time that you are dragging behind this new car commitment that you have added to your life.
Well, that certainly puts it in perspective.
Yeah.
And really a depressing thing, right?
Depressing.
You're a hard professor.
The work speaks for itself. The work speaks for itself is all I'm saying.
Right. Well, and actually when you were talking, something that came to mind too, is I've had some students in the past that I've worked with who are taking classes, and they will want to take on like a club or, something like that. And it's such great fun to be a part of those things. And, especially if you're a full-time student, say that you're not working, but you're a full-time student. But I think it goes back to that, same thought process. As you have to think that even though it's only a 1-hour meeting a week, it seems like nothing. That club could still now ask you to be the secretary, and now you've got all the notes that you have to write out, and you have to send, you know what I mean? There's always like more kind of to just the 1 or 2 hours that you're spending. And so, not just in classes, but even those outside extra, stuff that you want to do too.
That is the biggest hidden lesson to adding new things to your schedule for me is stop and think about what comes with every commitment.
What comes with it. That's right. Well, and I think it's also a great idea if you have somebody to talk to about making this decision, having an extra set of eyes, I think is always great. And asking them, hey, what do you think? Should I take this on? And just getting, verbally processing it, because that's such a, great way for many of my clients to make decisions, is to kind of verbally process through the whole, okay, what does this really mean? And then they hear themselves say it and they're like, oh man, not a good idea.
Yeah,
I'm going to wait.
Right.
Okay. So the last point that I want to talk about, and I'm kind of repeating a little bit of the information that we talked about earlier with the making decisions. Remember when we were talking about organizing and how hard it is sometimes to make decisions? Well, I think it goes the same with this. Even though we're not organizing a space, we have to make a decision about whether or not we're going to add this activity into our life. And making no decision at all, being in limbo, as we've mentioned, is just a terrible place to be. It sucks all your energy. You're stressed. You're just going back and forth. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And like we mentioned before, I'm going to mention it again. Just make the decision. Have the confidence that no matter what, It can either be undone if you need it to be, or you can tweak it in some way if you need it to be. But make the decision and then focus that energy on making that be the best decision that you could have made.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And just release that stress of not knowing what you're going to do and put the stress to what you're going to be doing. I know that sounds strange, but focus that energy into just, okay, I can do this no matter what. But make the decision. You have to make it at some point. So.
Move forward.
Yeah, there you go.
Forward. Just keep swimming.
Swimming like little Nemo.
That's right. Just keep
Dory.
swimming.
Yeah.
Oh, Dory. Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
Ellen. Anyway, hey, this is great. I hope our first show back after our brief July hiatus. We're going into August. Ugh. See, I'm totally thrown off. I hope this is useful to folks. Please, again, share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. We actually added a handy new button right on the podcast page. You can click it. It opens up a little form, and you can write us directly with your comments and questions. We encourage you to do so. And you can write us anonymously if you would like. So there you go. We'd love to hear from you. Anything else as we wrap up?
No, I think that's it.
That's it. Let's put a fork in it. We're done. Thanks, everybody, for downloading and listening. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week right here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.